I'm fully aware that most of the buzz around this, if not all of the buzz of this, has died down now, but I didn't want it to disrupt my Halloween schedule. I've done it in the past and I've hated myself for it, and, I had a passion project. I wanted to do something, so finally here I am to give my thoughts on The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, which I'm just going to call Rings of Power moving forward. Much too wordy. But speaking of wordy, I didn't grow up with Tolkien in my life, which is strange because I've always loved fantasy works. But I was very late to the party. It was at least the Fellowship of the Ring, if not the Two Towers film coming out, that really sort of got me into the world, and then I got a hold of the books. So I read through them, I enjoyed it, I even went back to The Hobbit and went, okay, this is clearly a kid's book by comparison, you can tell. But I am also one of those rare people who has managed to get through the entirety of the Silmarillion without doing myself an injury or giving up partway through. And I loved it. I love how one of the things I found out about Tolkien was he created these stories and these worlds to justify the creation of the languages in them, because that was his biggest love. I just love how extra he was. I've created this language and now I need a story to justify it. Brilliant. But he also gives us a new mythology, because us Brits, we don't have a lot of massive mythology. We have the Arthurian thing possibly, but not much more than that. So this was something else that we could claim as ours, I guess, in a way. So yeah, I entered this with a lot of knowledge of what came before. I've played Shadow of Mordor to entirety. Shadow of War was just the same and I got bored of it. It did that Ubisoft clear all the map thing and I got bored of that. I'm fully invested in these works and these worlds, or this world. So getting to see young elves and things like that was a joy. Getting to see Moria before it became what we saw later on in the Third Age. Getting to see proto-hobbits, or at least one variant of them, the Harfoots. Because there were stores, there were various other types. But it's so nice to see some of this backstory fleshed out. And I decided to wait. A lot of people were judging the Black Dwarf situation, which I'm not going to get into. Racism is bad. That's as much as I'm going to say. But, all these things, not having a beard I've got an issue with, I'll grant you on that. But a lot of these things, people were complaining about or pulling apart and saying this is wrong, this is not Tolkien's vision, etc. I was ignoring because I wanted to make my own judgment. There are a lot of people here who clearly have passion for the work. I can't remember the guy's name, I'll probably put it below me or something. But the guy playing Gil-galad I saw in an interview, and he was so aware of everything about this. This isn't just someone who's done a bit of research for a role. I think he was a Tolkien fan first, and when the audition came across his lap or his agent told him, whatever it was, he was like, yes, I need to be on this. I get that vibe from him. And if not, then he's faking it really well, which is, for an actor, a great trait. Morfydd Clark, as well, is so good as Galadriel. You could believe her growing up to be Cate Blanchett. It's not a massive stretch. But unfortunately, a lot of these good things are overshadowed by a lot of the bad. A lot of people, once it's out, the less reactionary types, shall we say, were rightly annoyed in some aspects, because it does mess around with what Tolkien wrote. It does mess around with his vision. Now, I know a lot of the works published after his death could arguably be considered family-authorised fanfiction, I suppose, but they're as close to canon as we could get after someone has died. The family have said this is right, so we sort of allow it, but this is not that. A lot of the changes that were made just do feel like we know what came before, but we're just going to play fast and loose with it. Now, I do think being hampered by canon can be a bad thing, but there's a difference between being hampered by it and being respectful of what preceded you. But there are good elements in this. A lot of the light moments were fun. It did build to what we wanted, and I totally guessed both of the supposed twists. So okay, now on to the spoilers. The reveal of Halbrand was not a big surprise. Like I say, it wasn't straight away, but there was a moment, and I really can't remember when it was that I pinpointed it. But I recalled the story of Anatar, which, if I recall correctly, means giver of gifts in Elvish, and he was more elven than man. That was one issue I had. A misdirect, I know, but it was one of those that annoyed me. But he's the one who went, here you are, make this stuff into rings and everything like that, taught the secrets to Celebrimbor, and the rings of power were made, etc. But there was something about him that just clicked in my brain when he was saying we could make this stuff. There was also the fact that when Aragorn was revealed to Frodo, if you will, he made a comment about servant of the enemy would feel fouler and look fairer. That's very hard to get right in my head. And there's something about Halbrand, yes, it's a rugged look, but it is kind of attractive-ish. But there's just this air about him that just made me unsettled. So all of these factors were coming in. Adar, I was like, could it be? But because he looks a lot more like haggard and, a lot more orc-like, I was like, it's probably not going to be that. So that was my thought. And yes, when it was like, no, he's actually Sauron at the end, I was like, okay, yeah, I was right. The other big one, as soon as the meteor hit, as soon as we saw the stranger in that crater, I was like, well, originally I said the G word, but this is not the G word. Not yet. If you're not totally aware of this, here's some lore dump for you. The group that we know as the Wizards are actually Istari, which are a type of, angelic being, I guess you'd say, to put them in a Judeo-Christian understanding, called the Maiar. They are servants of the Valar, the gods, and, a bunch of them were sent to Middle-earth to help out during the Third Age in particular. Now, Gandalf doesn't exist until the Third Age. Gandalf the character, Gandalf the Grey, Mithrandir, the Grey Wanderer, etc., does not technically exist until the Third Age in the way that we know him. However, the Maiar Olorin has existed for a long time, has helped the elves back in the Undying Lands, etc., in Valinor, all that kind of stuff. He's been there, he's been present, as have they all in some form. So this guy, as soon as he hit ground, I was like, this is, like I said, Gandalf originally, but then I double-checked my information because I was like, wait, that's not quite right, is it? And yes, Olorin. So I was right on that as well, quite clearly. The whole thing with the cult going, you're Sauron, I was like, nope, not convinced. Not at all. Ain't happening. This is the big G before he's the big G. And I just love that element of it. There are so many good things in this that, I am praising, but overall, the package just doesn't deliver. So like I said in the pre-spoiler bit, if you're a massive fan of this world and this lore, yeah, watch it. If you're not, then yeah, I think you can happily skip it. I think this is... I know they've got a plan. They've got a 5-year plan or 5-season plan, and they know how it's going to end. And because I'm versed in the lore, I'm along for the ride, but it is almost like dutiful now. So, but that's all I want to say about Rings of Power. And next week I'm going to talk about something else that was kind of a disappointment, but rescued it at the end. So I hope you join me for that. But until then, as always, thank you for watching and take care.